Hello alums, I'm Andrew Hamilton. I'm Associate Vice Provost for Student Success and Dean of Undergraduate Studies here at the G. That means it's my job to make sure undergraduate students and their families have everything they need to be successful academically and help them build toward post-college lives. After all, student success has to last the whole lifetime. I get to tell you about the work we did in the run-up to the current fall term, the term that just ended, fall 2020. And maybe I'll say a little bit about what we're planning for next fall. But the good news, and it really is good news, is that our students did a remarkable job of keeping our campus safe. They did a remarkable job of observing the community health standards, and they did a remarkable job of flourishing academically under very, very tough circumstances. So my hat's off to them. My admiration for our students has grown even more than it did before over the past year or so. I already held them in high esteem, but they really showed us something this year. So let me give you a little bit of a run up to what our fall 2020 term looked like. Spring, you will remember, spring of 2020, right around spring break, had to the term is pivot to fully online instruction because at the time we, like everybody else, was very naive about COVID and how it was transmitted and what was on the immediate horizon for us. So we did the online pivot, and of course you remember the CARES Act. So Congress provided some relief funds, which we tried to use to support students and keep the academic disruptions to an absolute minimum. So we, between April and September of 2020, redistributed $9.2 million to students. Every student who got those grants qualified for federal financial aid and were enrolled in in-person degree programs. Most of that money went out as automatic grants. The students who had the most need and measured by the lowest family contribution, according to the FAFSA, got the first awards and they got the most money. And then after that, we supported students who had holds on their accounts because they owed the university money, or who had dropped at least one course in the spring. So we took dropping a course in the spring as a sign that the student had struggled, and we essentially made them an award to subsidize summer enrollment. So what you're seeing here is in the run-up to the fall term, we were trying to use these relief funds to make sure, first, that our students had the basics, and then secondly, that they were able to use their dollars in the way Congress expected, which is to hold the academic disruption to a minimum. We also distributed hundreds of $500 awards to students by application, and those were not need-based. So all students had to do was qualify for federal financial aid to get those awards. There was no means testing other than that, because we wanted to make sure that every student had the opportunity to get at least $500. So while all that was going on, we were planning the fall of 2020, and remember, in the spring of 2020, in the time period I was just talking about, April, May, June, most folks thought that the pandemic would be coming to an end in the summer as essentially the viral season, the flu season, came to an end. That, of course, turned out not to be true. So, as is always the case, we built the fall 2020 schedule the prior spring, and then we had to do it again. So we had to figure out how we were going to have students in classrooms. So we serve a population of students that we were hearing from them that spring. They missed the in-person instruction. They missed the structure of having an in-person instructor. They missed the structure and the accountability of having peers that they were studying with and working with. So we had to figure out how we were going to have students in classrooms safely. And at the same time, we had to figure out how we were going to offer students flexibility. So some students wanted and needed in-person instruction, but others wanted and needed to be at a distance because it wasn't safe for them. Either they were in a high-risk group or they were a caretaker for someone who was in a high-risk group. And remember, these were tough times. Like last spring and into the summer, none of us really knew sort of half of what we know now about COVID. So we figured out best we could, and it turned out we got this mostly right. We figured out best we could how to offer the best of both, how to offer in-person instruction for students who needed it, and how to offer flexible options for students who needed those. So our principles were essentially we minimized mass movement of students to and from campus, so we changed the academic schedule so we wouldn't have a bunch of students coming and going for holidays. We lowered our density by having about 50% of our options as remote and hybrid. And hybrid means that a course with multiple class meetings only meets for a fraction of those meetings. So a Tuesday, Thursday course would, half the students would meet on Tuesday and half the students would meet on Thursday, for instance. And then we put those options in the schedule so that students could choose. So if a student was in a Tuesday, Thursday class and it met half the students met on Tuesday and half met on Thursday, we put in the schedule those options so that a student could figure out whether they wanted to be mostly on campus on Tuesday or mostly on campus on Thursday, which took some doing, by the way. The reason I'm emphasizing this point is that we were doing everything we could to give students maximal control over their academic schedules, because this was a time of great uncertainty, and even more so than now. And we wanted students to be able to not only to be able to control their academic schedules, because that's a way for them to control their work schedules and life schedules and home schedules. So it was really important to us that students had kind of maximum flexibility and the greatest number of instructional options. We managed to be about 42% in person, which, and of course, everybody's distanced at 6 feet and masked. The good news is we know of no instances on our campus, or frankly any other, of COVID transmission in the classroom. We wound up being about the same proportion online, fully remote, and then about 16% of our courses met at least once a week in hybrid format, and then had the rest of their instruction delivered remotely. So we started on the planned day, which I think was August 19th, but we eliminated the fall break to the howling protests of students, of course, but we just couldn't risk having sort of a mass migration from campus and a mass migration back after we had already a mass migration to campus in August. And then we ended, so the idea here was to make the semester as compact as possible. We were required to have a certain number of instructional days. What we did essentially was do it over fewer days. So same number of instructional days over a smaller number of calendar days. We ended classes Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and then all the exams were online. So students were on campus from the middle of August until the third week of November, and then they went home and did not return until January. So I hinted at the beginning that we got some good results. These are things we're really proud of, and not only that we did, but that students did. So by Halloween, we were the only system research university still functioning as planned, meaning we didn't have to move students out of the residence halls, and we didn't have to move to online instruction. We had other schools in the state who had to make significant changes to their plans. Again, it was our students who made the difference. It was remarkable to be on campus. And of course, the rule is if you're outside and you can maintain 6 feet distance, we didn't need to wear face coverings. Students did. So I don't know how many times I saw students walking by themselves down the sidewalk wearing a face covering. So they went above and beyond to make sure that they kept themselves and our community safe, and I am grateful and thankful. So how did our students do academically? I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what really matters. And the answer is they did great. So what you're looking at here in the blue is the fall of 2019, our last non-pandemic semester. And this is the proportion of each grade awarded to students. So what you can see is that slightly fewer A's were awarded in fall of 2020, but more B's and more C's, but fewer F's, and about the same number of withdrawals. So we didn't have it. It wasn't the case that students were dropping a bunch of courses because their learning was interrupted. They couldn't make it work. They did a really great job of maintaining academic standards, and our faculty did a really great job for the most part of being flexible so that students who were struggling could complete courses and get their work in and earn their grades. We also pulled out the stops for for learning and psychosocial support for students. And so right now what I want to do is I want to introduce you to some of the people, and in particular some of the students who supported other students. First, we have an academic success coaching program that we're really proud of. And here's Sydney Smith, who's a graduate student in psychology, to tell you about it.
Hi, my name is Sydney Smith, and I'm a second-year terminal master's student in the psychology department here at UNCG. I've been part of the academic success coaching program for almost a year now. I'm sure that my experience working with the program looks very different from the experiences of previous coaches. I started with the program this past fall, so all of my interactions have been completely virtual, and while it feels a little weird to have never met in person my fellow coaches and the students that I've come to know, I don't feel like I'm missing out. Coaching has given me the opportunity to connect with others in a really unique way and form new relationships during a time where it's really easy to feel isolated. Through coaching, I found that I am not only supporting my students, but I feel supported through the process of coaching them, and that's something that's been invaluable to me in my own success and mental health throughout the pandemic. When I first started as a coach, I wasn't really sure what to expect, and the thought of meeting with undergrads as an expert in academic success was really intimidating. But we went through a lot of training before the start of the fall semester, and I constantly felt supported by the other coaches and by Scott and Mobley, who lead our meetings and are in charge of managing everything that goes on behind the scenes for the program. I've enjoyed the entire process of being a coach, but a big turning point for me was at the end of my first semester of coaching, when I asked my students for feedback on the program as a whole and on my performance as a coach. Specifically, I wanted to know what they felt like they were getting out of the process and how I could improve for future sessions. Most of my students said something along the lines of, I didn't know what to expect when I signed up, or I wasn't really sure it was going to help me, but it's been great and I'm going to be sad when we can't meet anymore. Which is good. I was happy to get that kind of feedback. But there was one student that said, I don't know if I would have made it through the semester without our meetings. And when they said that, first off, I wanted to cry, but secondly, I realized that I'm not just meeting with students and helping them overcome obstacles in the present, but I'm potentially helping them to change their future or reach their full potential. And that's really special. That's not something that many people get to do. I remember my own experience transitioning to college life as a freshman, and it was extremely difficult. Like many people, I moved away from my family and friends. I started life as an adult for the first time, and I think the difficulty of that transition really gets downplayed a lot. I didn't have access to anything like the academic success coaching program in my first year, and I really struggled. Programs like this are so important and can mean the difference between success and failure for a student. Sometimes people just need a little bit of support, and I'm grateful that I've been able to work with my fellow coaches to provide that for students.
In addition to the academic success coaching program, we also have peer academic leaders. Here's Joshua Burns to tell you about the PALS program.
Hi, my name is Joshua Burns. I am a junior majoring in history and secondary education with a minor in political science, and I work as a student leader in the following ways. I serve as a peer academic leader captain in new student transitions and first year experience, a cohort captain in the UNCG Guarantee program, a student ambassador in the UNCG McNair program, and a certified peer educator in the Office of Leadership and Civic Engagement. Thinking about this academic year, what role did you play as a student leader to help support fellow students? One of the ways that I did this is in the FYE 101-68 the G course, in which I helped fellow students that were coming into UNCG as a first-year student as they were challenged by the transitional challenges and the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you describe a specific experience where you felt students were positively impacted through your support? I think one way where I had strong impact is in the UNCG Guarantee program, where I helped first-year students that came from first-generation, low-income, and minority backgrounds transition to UNCG. What, if anything, has been being a student leader during this time given you? In other words, were you able to benefit by providing support to others? Through my positions in supporting fellow students, I have honestly been able to grow tremendously. I have become more comfortable with myself as a leader, but also become more comfortable supporting others. How would you summarize your experience this year? And specifically, how have you witnessed UNCG support? I have witnessed UNCG support throughout this entire year and during the COVID-19 pandemic. They have been with me every step of the way, and I have seen them support other students as well. And it really goes to show that UNCG does care about its students and providing support in any way that it can. So thank you.
Direct academic support is also really important to us. So Madison Pullman helps with that through Supplemental Instruction. Here she is to tell you about it.
Hi, I'm Madison, and I've been a Supplemental Instruction leader since the fall of 2019. Quite a bit has changed in my role as a student leader since then, especially over the last year. I used to spend the majority of my Supplemental Instruction, or SI sessions, just making sure students understood the topics being covered in class. But the transition to online classes has definitely diversified the kinds of things that we cover in sessions. On top of class materials, we now talk about things like time management for asynchronous classes, avoiding burnout when you sometimes have to be in front of a computer for 12 plus hours a day, as well as some heavier topics. Depression, anxiety, and grief have all come up more than once in my sessions, and I'm so grateful that UNCG has such a comprehensive number of resources to help students get through these challenges. One challenge that I think all of us have had to deal with over the last year has been feeling overwhelmed with what can feel like constant bad news, but not knowing what to do to help. For me, being able to work as a student leader has been integral in helping me to stay hopeful and motivated, especially when I get feedback from students. What used to be mostly appreciation for helping them succeed academically has evolved to sometimes be much more impactful. The class I assist with is Intro to Biology, which has become a lot more relevant to the real world over the last year. Last week, we just finished up our chapter on DNA and RNA, and I had a student stay after one of my sessions to thank me for a certain analogy I used to explain mRNA and protein synthesis. Apparently, she used the same analogy to explain how the mRNA vaccines work to her dad, who had been pretty hesitant to get a vaccine with so much new technology that's very seldom explained in a way that makes sense to anyone without a degree in biology. She said that the analogy I used made it make enough sense to him to get him to book an appointment to get vaccinated next week. That's definitely not the kind of conversation I ever thought that I'd get to have with a student, but I'm incredibly grateful for any role I've been able to play in supporting students, regardless of how big or small it might have been.
And finally, here's Alyssa Lale to tell you about the work she's done helping our students do well in chemistry.
Hello, my name's Alyssa Lale, and I'm a drop-in tutor for chemistry through the Academic Achievement Center. I've been tutoring for 5 semesters now, and pre-pandemic my tutoring sessions were conducted in small group settings in person. However, once the pandemic hit, we had to move all of our tutoring sessions online. As you can imagine, this was a rough transition for the entire student body. However, I was surprised to find that every single one of my students stuck with tutoring and continued to show at their scheduled sessions virtually. This showed not only their determination, but also their desire to succeed academically, even while facing such unprecedented times head-on. I recently began the new format of academic support that AAC now provides, called drop-in tutoring. This format allows any student enrolled in the course to receive tutoring services without even having to sign up or commit to a certain time to attend once a week. Rather, I hold 5 one-hour sessions via Zoom a week, and the students can choose whether or not to attend and how long they feel like they need to review, whether that be for the full hour or for only 10 minutes. This format really caters to the students' individual needs, time constraints, and other personal factors that could affect how much academic support they can receive. I recently had a student express their appreciation for drop-in tutoring due to how accessible and individualized it is. They said with a full course load, a full-time job, and kids to take care of, drop-in tutoring has made it much easier to receive help with his courses, and he feels less overwhelmed, which is really all any student can ask for in times like these. They also expressed that being able to drop in and out of the sessions has made it more accessible for them to attend, as their schedule doesn't always permit for a full hour. Providing services like these has truly helped students to feel supported, encouraged, and listened to. I'm nothing but grateful to be able to provide some sense of clarity, encouragement, and empathy to students who want nothing more than to do their best and succeed academically. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be able to offer you this look at how we supported our students and how students support other students, and to just give you the good news that as bad as the pandemic has been and as tough as it was for students and faculty and parents and the community and even some administrators, our students really did the work it took to keep our campus safe and to make degree progress and to keep working toward their dreams. Alums, if you have questions, feel free to send an email. It's ugdean@uncg.edu. I'll be happy to answer. And so thanks for watching, and as always, go Spartans.